It's good to see you. Oops. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining. It's good to see you all virtually. I hope you're having a nice summer. I'm really excited about our agenda tonight. A lot of good stuff coming. But the first order of business is to approve the minutes from our June meeting. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at those minutes. They were posted to the Slack. So can I get, can I have a motion to approve minutes?
I motion.
Thank you, Victoria, and a second. Tim, seconds, great, thank you. So the first item on the agenda is an update from the PR subcommittee. So we have continued to meet just about every couple of weeks. The community survey was launched a few weeks ago. Really excited to see the results presented tonight. Lance and Ann will be providing us with a review of that. So that went out through a variety of channels. The town put it on their website, the library posted it to their Facebook page, the citizen did an email blast to their membership. It's been on the school website, we've pushed it out, so hopefully we are able to get a lot of good information there. Additionally, in our most recent subcommittee meeting, we have a volunteer in the community who is willing to help us with a website that will link back to the SAU, we'll provide the link on the SAU page, but this site will be specifically for all the work that's starting to roll out with the Joint Facilities Advisory Committee. And Anne will be guiding us in the documents that we'll be uploading to that site, so that as we move forward, we have one centralized location for the community to go to learn all about the work that we're doing here. That's my update for tonight. If any other members of the PR subcommittee had anything to add that I missed, feel free to jump in. If not, I'd like to turn it over to Victoria Parisi, who will give us an update on the newly formed Souhegan 2.0 subcommittee.
Yes. So our newly formed Souhegan 2.0 committee is off to a great start. Stephanie Grunt and Lisa Eastland and I have been working to meet with different people around our buildings. We've already met with Michelle Croteau and Roger Preston and Mike Berry. And next week we have a meeting set up with Lance and Roger to get a little bit more information. What our priority list is going to look like, we plan to bring it to JFAC in August. And the list should include projects that our committee believes should be done in a certain order. We're choosing the order based on the cost, the impact, the need, the expected return, all those different things. Let's see, what else do I want to let you guys know? We have recommended to the Souhegan moderator, who's George Bauer, we've recommended that somebody from the Souhegan Advisory Finance Committee be linked in either through JFAC or through 2.0. It will help to have some more information at the table when the budget process begins. And we want to make sure that the items that we recommend actually fit into the strategic vision of our district and Souhegan, and they're not made in a vacuum. So we've been having, we've corresponded with different people and we've had conversations to really understand that what we're doing is meaningful and makes sense to tell everybody. In case you guys don't realize, the Souhegan 2.0 proposal is a large project and it has a large price tag. We are going to work hard to create the priority list that will continue to provide a healthy, maintained, and education-focused facility for our students. So in the time between now and our next JFAC meeting, we'll be conducting more meetings. This would be the right time if anyone has input that they'd like to tell us. I know as JFAC members, you guys have all seen 2.0. If there's anything that sticks out to you that you want to make sure that we're thinking about, this would be great if you could let us know. So my email is vparisi@sau39.org. And I guess that's all that we really have to let you guys know so far, but we're excited to come back in August and you guys are going to look at us and we're going to have our numbers out and recommendations for how you can get to those things. So get excited. Jeannie, do you have a question for me?
Yeah, Victoria, I just, I've been away, and I saw that George had asked members of the Finance Committee to volunteer for that committee. And I said, if no one else stepped forward, I'm already, involved. So I'd be happy to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
But if someone else really wants to do it, who's already on the Finance Committee, then I certainly want them to, the more the merrier.
So Jeannie, I'm the one that reached out to George, and I have not heard back from him. So maybe he's waiting to see if anyone else did, but you might be the person.
Oh, okay. I mean, you reached out to him also, Stephanie?
Well, I'm the one who contacted him to get somebody on the group with us because I thought it was important.
Okay, I just haven't heard because I sent that out and then I didn't get a response. So we'll see.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen?
Hey,
Ellen's frozen.
Jeannie and Stephanie, I think Joel Gordon, can you guys hear me? Is my internet going down? Yeah.
We can hear you now.
Yeah, I know. I'm far away from the Wi-Fi.
Can't hear you now.
Greater bandwidth so you can hear us better. Drop your video.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'll put it in the chat. Joel Gordon is I'm going to go closer to the Wi-Fi.
Does anybody else have any questions or input for us?
I just want to, sorry I joined late. I was in another meeting and I hadn't eaten all day. I'm really sorry. But thank you to the subcommittee. This is really great work that is happening. We've had Sohegan 2.0 for a while and haven't really been able to act on it because it just was so large and it was just tough to get going. So I really appreciate this work that's happening and that we'll be able to distill it down to items that are critical to do and separate out other things that maybe are nice to have, maybe to do later. So I don't ever like to speak for my fellow board members, but I would expect that the Sohegan board will be very grateful for this work that you folks have done. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Victoria. Before we move into the presentations from Ann and Lance, I see that Roger Preston is joining us as a panelist tonight, and I just wanted to take a moment to say hi to Roger and welcome him to the group. We're really excited to have you here on these calls and as part of our committee.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here as well.
All right. So now, unless there's any other questions or anything we need to that anyone wants to dig into, Amy, are you ready for us to move into the next phase of the evening? Does that work for you?
Feel free to carry on, Shannon.
Super. Great.
I have no pride of authority.
Awesome. Okay, so I'd like to turn it over to Lance and Ann. We have two items on the agenda tonight. One is the existing site plan for Clark Wilkins, and the other is the results of the community survey.
Yep. If it's okay, I actually have 3 things to go over tonight if we have time, and I can add it at the end. So Clark Wilkins, I know last meeting we focused a lot on the middle school, and I want to go through Clark Wilkins on this call. Ann has the summary of the survey as you noted. And the last thing is we have made progress on the middle school design. We have a few design options and we'd love to show them to you. I don't expect you guys to make decisions tonight, but I would love to present them and get them into your inboxes so you can review them and come to the next meeting and say what you like and what you don't like about some of those.
Exciting.
So I'm going to tag that on the end unless we run out of juice, and I understand if we do, given that you guys are going meeting to meeting. I'm going to need to be able to share my screen, whoever the host is.
All set. Sorry about that, Lance. Zoom turns it off by default for every meeting. Sorry about that.
All right, so everybody can see that? All right, so Clark Wilkins School. We've been going through quite a few things. I'm going to start with existing conditions. As many of you know, We looked at both buildings. I don't think it'll come as a surprise that the Clark School is heavily constrained, as in these are the setbacks that come around. Those are in the blue. And the property line is in the red. Essentially, you have maxed out the site. You have a very small area. You could do an addition, but you could not do significant additions here. If you were to also read the existing report that you had done for the facilities, you'll note that the building is in fairly rough condition compared to your other schools. Some of the things that we noted, everything you see here that has a 1 is an undersized classroom per the Department of Education standards. Everything that has a 2 is a classroom that should have a toilet and sink attached to it per both your standard and the DOE standard. We've also noted ADA issues abound. There's a lot of ADA issues throughout this school, which essentially, and then we do have some structural sediment happening on the front of the school. What this is arriving at is that this building is not something that lends itself well to expansion. Renovation, even then, we would essentially be rebuilding it in place. So it may not be a cost-effective use of taxpayer dollars to spend significant dollars here. Now, the Wilkins site is almost the opposite. The Wilkins site has opportunities for expansion. It is, you have expansion opportunities at both the upper field and the lower field, and it has 2 means of access, meaning you could do 2 schools in this site or 1 large or expanded school in this site. The only areas that we would stay away from is you do have a wetlands out front that comes around. So expansion coming down sheet here is not possible. However, the 2 flat areas there are expandable areas, are buildable areas. For those of you not familiar with the site, I'm sure all of you are, but anybody watching at home, there is a significant grade difference. So if we were to expand on the upper field, we would not likely connect these buildings. So the upper field would be a different building, a second building site, just because of the sheer grade change there. As far as the building's layout goes, it is a very simple, efficient layout. It does have some undersized areas. Primarily what you have is a building that was built during a period when we did not have as much special needs in our school systems. We did not have as many students with those special needs, and we did not have as many mandates to provide those special services. So what you see is areas like these that were former classrooms that are being used for speech, intervention, special education, areas that ideally would have their own room, but we've taken a classroom over and we've temporarily subdivided it, so we don't have great acoustic separation and we don't have great space. It's kind of what we had to work with without renovation. So those are things that we would definitely want to correct if we were to renovate this building. You have a couple minor issues here that are easy to correct with a renovation. You have a security issue in that we always want a secure vestibule set up. That's something that could be corrected fairly easily by rearranging how the vestibule works to essentially put people in contact with an administrator before they're admitted into the building, and to give them access to administration without giving them access to student areas. We do have 1 small fire issue, which is a dead end corridor, a very simple fix, either close the corridor off or put a door in at the end. And we do have some rooms that are undersized for what we would like to see. We're going to get into that a little bit in the program and why 2nd grade is actually undersized in this building. Now, programming, given the sizes in each classroom and the enrollment numbers, what we're seeing is that kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade should ideally have 9 classrooms, 9 sets of kids at each level. 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade should have 8. That's to hit those program numbers. Now you can see 9, those 1st grades are really right at the upper end of 9, and that 3rd grade and lower is really at the, right at the 8. So I think you're comfortable in that you don't have a lot of extra capacity here, but you're right on the number where we want you to be. So that's assuming the class sizes that were taken right out of your school board thing that we went over last, the school board decision that we went over last meeting. this is what that translates to for a program. Now, I've sent this over to Anna and others for review, but what we're seeing, I've highlighted the significant changes. For preschool, we did note that we would like to have, I did need to review that 2 preschool spaces will continue to be, to work in the future. I believe that's what you have now. And the question is, I mean, that's going to change every year based on how many kids you have in that program, because it's not, preschool is not a constant, it's not an easy predictor, because you're also handling kids with special needs that come to your district. But right now, we're assuming that 2 preschool rooms should do well. Kindergarten should really get to 9. You have 7 classrooms now, so that's a 2 classroom growth. That's why you're seeing that growth. Another thing for kindergarten and first grade, in discussions with the principals and the leadership there, they would like to see the workshop model applied to those classrooms, which essentially means that the classroom is set up, and I know Anna could explain it better, but the classroom is set up into zones, and it means the teacher needs a little bit more space to be able to break kids into different workshops throughout the room. I mean, instead of a 900 square foot classroom at that age, they said ideally we would have a 900 or a 1200 square foot classroom. Now, we did not apply that to all grades. We did say that kindergarten and first grade are the really essential ones to have that workshop model employed. Second grade classrooms, you can see 9 classrooms there. You currently have 7. We did ask the question based on this group, which classroom should have sinks? And it was noted that second grade should have sinks, first grade and kindergarten should have both sinks and bathrooms. And that's kind of the ideal. Obviously, every educator said, if you give me a sink, I'll be happy. But what we tried to do is there's a requirement for third grade. And we said we could probably live without it, but sinks are better to have. But a restroom, you know, at third grade, they can really start, in second grade, they can start traveling to a restroom as long as it's in that wing. You're not sending them all the way through the building. Fourth grade, again, a growth just in the sheer number of classrooms. Now, I noted you actually have 3 existing classrooms. That's because you have 4 out in portables. So you obviously know you're short on classrooms for this grade level or for in this whole cohort. 5th grade, again, short on classrooms. You really should have 8 classrooms there. We did go through intervention areas. You're not seeing huge growth in those, but I mean, it's just getting the right space and the right size. As I noted, your intervention areas that you have now are just, you know, they're repurposed to be an intervention area. They're not designed to be an intervention area. So they need better acoustics, they need better separation, and they all need natural light, the things that we all need to learn and function well. Art rooms, 2 art rooms, as I noted early on, 2 art rooms would work well across all grade levels. 2 music rooms will work well across all grade levels. The STARS program does need some growth. It's undersized in these buildings, and it really should have a larger space. That's consistent with what we saw at the middle school, how that program runs. My Time should have 2 programs across both grade levels, and should essentially take up classroom space, classroom size space, sorry. And then we do have the technology. We did talk a little bit about technology, having a laptop lab for 5th grade. That was a discussion we had with the middle school principals as well. And a multimedia learning space would be ideal, like a computer lab and a maker space, kind of all clustered together there. Education areas then, growth. You're looking at a significant growth in your education areas, about 50,000 square feet of growth of what's missing today. Now I'm comparing that growth, assuming that we're all on one site. So if you took the existing Wilkins School and you said, how much of an addition does it need? Just in classroom space, you're about 50,000 square feet. Administrative areas, I think these are very straightforward. I don't want to go into all the details here. One of my questions for this group and others is, does the school have, and should the school in the future have an SRO at these schools?
Lance,
Adam,
I would
you
say,
want to wait on that?
yeah, I would say no for now. We have one that's shared with the Amherst schools who consults, but in terms of space, no, shouldn't need dedicated space at the school. That's my first blush read. Anna,
Okay.
If you disagree, feel free to.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if we went to that the SRO was even visiting or had a day in, I think that we could flex and manipulate, but I wouldn't say there's a need.
Okay. Other areas you're seeing growth in, very similar to the high school. They've essentially taken all their meeting space away and used it for whatever special services they had. So they do need things that are missing: conference rooms, work rooms, large conference room, small conference room for administration to be able to meet with parents as a team, do any professional development. They're just lacking those spaces, because if they had them, they got turned over to special education. Guidance counselors, you have 3 guidance counselors that are needed here, 2 social workers, a behavioral coach, and psychologist, all employed. We just need to find good spaces for them. Again, they're kind of shoehorned into wherever we could find them now. In testing areas, we did talk about a learning commons here, and unlike the high school, they would like, or unlike the middle school, they would like a learning commons. They just want it to be a little bit more modest, not quite as large as what the middle school is looking for that kind of learning commons area. Couple more questions I have here. They do need 2 gym spaces. That is 2 PE spaces. That's physical education. I know this group talked about, having gym space is actually also a community use space. So whenever we do construction, we want to be cognizant that a little bit more is better. But just for physical education alone, they need 2 spaces, which could be with the large gym subdivided, or it could be 2 gym spaces. My question here is, for this age group, if we have the gym, do we want to build in locker rooms at all? Typically for this age group, we don't see kids changing, but do you want the locker rooms for community?
Bathrooms. Yeah.
So that's kind of a question to this group. Should we be building in locker rooms as part of any new construction?
Anyone from the community want to weigh in on that? I don't want to weigh in on that.
Well, I guess, Lance, would you prefer if we kind of hold our questions now, or is it better, hold our questions till the end, or is it better to ask as we go along? What's your preference? I'm making notes as I go here.
Why don't I pose the questions now? If you have an immediate response, blurt it out. But I know some of you are going to need to digest some of this and probably answer some of those questions at the next meeting or towards the end of the discussion, because I'm going to show you some diagrams and some plans that start to solve this that may lead these questions to be easier to answer.
Great.
All right.
I'm going to hold mine.
So, overall, the existing Wilkins School is about 49,000 square feet. If I add everything above, you need about 113,000 square feet of space. So we're talking about major addition or new building on this site. Now, these are fresh off the press. Anna has not even seen these.
Woohoo!
This is just diagramming out all the spaces and their interactions of everything we need. This diagram would say if we had one building and it was preschool through 5th grade, this is everything that needs to be there. You can see that nobody has any stronger or less connection to the core. There's large core space. You can, even though it's a single story diagram, what it would be is you could easily have a 2-story wing. So you could take the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, put them on top. Some of these areas could easily be on the upper floor. Obviously administration, things like that we want on the lower floor. And keep in mind that all of these core areas, anything that the kindergarten and 1st grade or preschool use, have to be on the lower floor. So you can put, as an example, a computer lab on the upper floor, but that computer lab must be dedicated towards 3rd grade and above, or 2nd grade with its own stairwell. So really we're talking about 3rd, 4th grade, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade on the 2nd floor. If we did.
And just clarify that this is not a proposed building design. This is a programming diagram.
This is an organizational diagram, and we're not saying we're building this. So it's just accounting for all the spaces and how they work together, the connections they need.
Lance, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Where incorporated is the special ed space here?
Okay, so
I see it. Okay, yeah.
Everything you see in orange is special education. Now, if we were to group several 2nd grade classrooms as an example together, we had said if we had all the 2nd grade that happened to be in one wing or one area of the building, we would want at least one case manager special education breakout space that they can use, and we would want one small group space, and we would want toilets and storage and a workroom out in that area, essentially spreading those out. The other thing, things that are not shown here are general building toilets, mechanical spaces, and facility spaces. Those will go in when we start designing the building. We'll locate those. So you can see all the orange spaces are special education driven spaces. Now, just out of curiosity, we said, well, if we took the existing building and we started to diagram out, and this actually is going from a diagram to, what if we tried to fit preschool, kindergarten, and first grade in that existing site? So we kind of stopped this ball rolling pretty quickly because these are the particular classrooms that are all 1,200 square feet, that we'd like to have 1,200 square feet. This existing building, all the classrooms are 850 to 900. They're a little short of 900. So right away we said, well, we're going to literally move every single wall in the building to make this happen. Plus, all these gray boxes, that signifies that's a classroom that should have a bathroom. And again, we looked at this building and said, geez, by the time we're done doing this, we're going to tear up the slabs to put in plumbing. Using the existing Wilkins building to go kindergarten, preschool, and first grade would be a very expensive renovation. So we quickly abandoned this idea. And in this scenario, we would say, well, then you've got all these spaces to still find a home for. That would be second grade through fourth grade. Another idea we had, which I'm going to show you what it would look like in a moment, and I want everybody's feedback on, is what if, I'm sorry, I'm missing pages here. Just a second, I got to open one other file. Okay. So if instead we start considering this building in the other direction, so we know we have a middle school and that's 6th, 7th, 8th grade. If we said, what if we put 4th and 5th grade in here? 4th and 5th grade classrooms actually fit fairly well into the existing room sizes. And it does give us the capacity to start working with that existing layout. What that would mean is these spaces, again, this isn't a building, but these are all the spaces we would have to accommodate not in this building, either as an addition to this building or as a new building of its own. So it would be a preschool through 3rd grade of its own building. So we took that a step further and said, and this is very early, these are not the final designs at all. This is just diagramming out in that existing building. All the areas you see in a lighter gray, that's the existing walls. So you can see we're pretty much using all the existing walls. We could pretty easily fit 4th grade and all their support spaces in this wing. We could pretty easily fit 5th grade and its support spaces along with art and music in this wing. We would work closely with Anna and her team to kind of critique where these things finally go, but square footage wise, special education, computer labs, laptop labs all fit. It is a 1-story building, so it's pretty simple layout. We took this effort as let's leave as much existing structure as possible, make the upgrades to the building that are listed in the physical constraints of the building, and then just do a small addition to be able to set up a secure entrance. It would be a little bit wider than that, rotated the media center so it's not landlocked, and said we could potentially fit this building together pretty easily in its existing condition with minimal renovation and more restoration, the mechanical systems, the lighting and things like that that we know have to be done on this footprint. It fits very nicely with 2 grades. So the question that I'm posing to this group is, should we continue in that direction? And then I haven't drawn up the addition to this, but are you comfortable with a new building and doing a transition between, so you do a transition at 3rd grade and then also add 5th grade to the middle school. No, up to 6th grade, I'm sorry. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
It does. So
I'm going to jump
Victoria,
in. I have a question real quick. So the building that you have up right now, this includes 4th and 5th grade, correct?
Yep, 4th and 5th grade, and all of the support spaces the 4th and 5th grade need.
Okay, so this is like looking at us building a new facility or something for pre-K through 3.
Mm.
So a lower elementary, and then we would have an upper elementary, and then we would have a middle school and a high school in our town. Okay.
This is
So-
exactly what Hollis has. And we already have a lower elementary. It's just pre-K and K, and then an upper elementary.
So I'm going to ask a question about the staffing that we would have to do, because this still gives us 2 separate buildings, which means that we still have some staff members that have to be either going between buildings, or we have to hire double and, you know, things like that. For those of you who have looked at this plan more, does it seem like we would need to hire multiple positions to be able to pull this off? Because you would be needing, let's say, a music teacher in 3rd grade right now is a full-time position, but that same music teacher teaches our 4th grade currently. So currently we only have 1 position for that, or 1 person being paid for that. So it's just a financial question when we're looking at the different options. That it's not a financial question that you think of about the building, but in terms of, you know, the impact on the staffing.
Yeah, I'll jump in and just say that anytime you have multiple buildings, the CapEx will be lower, but the OpEx will be higher, right? So the capital expenses for this proposed solution will be much lower, but the cost to operate multiple buildings is higher. 2 principals, 2 nurses, 2 sets of custodians, 2 bus drop-off and pickups, which might mean more buses, right? All of those sorts of things. So everything is weighed in a balance of CapEx versus OpEx.
So Lance, had you thought about where the lower building would be placed?
Yeah.
Would it be on the same site, perhaps?
So scenario 1, and we're kind of midstream of design and solution finding. But scenario 1 is we renovate this building, and we say we're going to do a 4th and 5th grade and reuse this building. Looking at your corridor width, it doesn't lend itself to being, you know, just scabbing onto this building, because what you're going to find is that 6-foot corridor, then you're talking about a new building. So as far as where the new building goes, I would really recommend it go on the upper site, so you have more access, and we try to work a connection between the 2 buildings, but that we put it on the upper site. The upper site, to me, seems to be the most cost-effective area to build a new building.
So on the field up above. So
So-
then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So if we call this scenario 1, where 4th and 5th grade go here, and the upper school takes on pre-K through 3. That's scenario 1.
Mm-hmm.
Scenario 2 is you build everything on this site, and I still have to work out how that, you know, it would likely be on the upper field, but it could be on the lower field, and we knock this building down or sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And as Adam said, I can do the exercise and show you the costs of each. I haven't drawn that second option yet up. I haven't even completed this option yet, because I haven't drawn the new building on the upper site. But then it's also, you know, we want to look at that. I could look at it with Adam and with Anna and say, all right, what's the staffing difference? And did we spend, you know, did we save money on a bond vote or save money on construction, but spend more than that on staffing? So that's something we can definitely work on. My question to this group is this even a viable option in terms of, do we think it's worth entertaining to keep going on?
Lance, can I just ask, is there a possibility, is this completely at all practical to add a 2nd story to this whole building?
It's not going to be cost effective. And the
Okay.
reason that is structural codes change about every 2 years. And there are buildings that are built to take an upper floor, and you could have that time frame of doing it before the code changes. At this point, it's possible. The issue would be that we'd build a building on a pier, essentially above it, So you'd have columns dropped on the outside of it, almost like, exactly as a build a pier above this building. During that period, we wouldn't want kids in the building because we'd be running heavy steel above the building. So it's something you do when you're in cities and you don't have any more land. For you guys, it's going to be more cost effective to do additions to this building than to try to go up.
So Lance, can we go off the back of the building then?
You definitely could. You definitely could do your addition back here, or you could do a new building back here and tie it in. What I wouldn't want to do is to say this is the main entrance for all of this, because with this many kids on a site, you're going to have major pinch points here where essentially I would almost widen this whole building to be able to get you down through it.
So I'm just going to chime in while I'm still talking. I don't mind the two schools. I think sometimes for professional development and student and staff collaboration, having them separated, I understand the logistical and financial component year to year. These buildings are a lot closer together than our other two buildings are now. We could build Anna a tunnel. Just have to walk outside. It's just those stairs, and we'll rebuild those stairs, Anna, because I run up those stairs and
10,000 steps.
My face almost once a week. So, specials teachers could go up the stairs. I like that there would be two separate outdoor spaces, essentially. I don't think we wanted to get anywhere near Jones Road and any kind of access for parents. I think that would be a traffic issue. So buses would have to probably stick with their situation now. At Jones is, can be a little, it's just a little tiny road. So that's just my input. I don't mind the separation. I think ideally we're all in one building, but I'm not closed down to the two different learning spaces.
So my opinion, having been through this in other places, is that I think we can't take anything off the table yet, and we need to be able to compare the relative, the bond costs for multiple ideas compared to the operating costs for multiple ideas, and get feedback from the community before we summarily dismiss any idea. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I was going to say something similar. I think that, while certainly at the face of it, one building is more appealing, if the financial benefits of having two are really make this a more feasible project in order to gain acceptance, then I think we need to explore that. So I would say we definitely need more information to be able to make an informed decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Adam and Amy completely on that. I think it's an exercise that we have to go through. I also just want to make sure I'm understanding. So you're telling me the current footprint for Wilkins really only adequately serves 2 grades worth of students.
Correct.
Okay, super. I wanted to be clear on that. I also just wanted to, as we're talking about the upper field, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, make certain that we're considering that upper field was built using funds from the Land Water Conservation Fund. So anything we build on that field, we're responsible to replace that field in our community. So that's going to be a cost. So I don't know what that really means for us in terms of making, building something on that field. I don't know what the lower field, if that's maybe more feasible for that reason.
And do you know if that was done through
Sorry, Brian, you're cutting out.
Who would be responsible for replacing the fields? Would it be the town, schools specifically, or it was like the rec department? The rec department.
I think it's the schools. Is that right, Adam?
Yeah, we own that field on Jones.
The school, Amherst School District owns that land.
So I like the idea of building up there, but I don't know if that puts a curveball into that, that we just want to make sure we consider.
I'd say that's a curveball, unless we knock down poles and make it a field.
So Ellen, are you thinking that when you say Jones Road should not be included in the bus route, are you assuming that kids are going to be walking, little kids are going to be walking up those steps?
I just, I think maybe maybe it's a new conversation now, considering we'd have to replace the field, but I drive on Jones frequently. It's not a very wide road, and understanding how many parents in our town drive and pick up their children from school. You know, Clark has one grade, and it's a big issue over on
Boundary.
so Jones is certainly a little wider than that and has a yellow line, but it's difficult. It would be difficult to navigate a car line over there.
And the car line at Wilkins now is already difficult. You know, like the whole scene is just.
Yeah. So
I mean, that's why it's probably better to put the second building in the same plane rather than having little kids walk up steps to that upper field.
yeah, I'm in agreement. And considering we'd have to replace the field, that's a pretty big, that's a big hurdle.
Yeah, so let me start working with a civil engineer then in citing how we would get the roads. I'm going to start with the lower field, and whether it's 2 buildings or an addition, or one building's lightly connected, I'm going to pursue and finish off this concept. Anna, I will review this with you and your team a little bit further so that we can do some rearranging.
Okay.
I think as long as everybody's comfortable with looking at both scenarios, reuse this building and do an addition / new building behind it, and wipe the slate clean and do a whole new building. We'll look at both options, and then Adam and I can work on, and Anna, we can work together and come back to this committee with likely differences in staffing.
When you're looking at this building, is it possible to also, I'm sure it is possible, could you also look at the drop-off area and the procedure with that and see if it's possible to kind of loop in that, if we've extended out the back, loop in some driving there too, so that our kindergartners wouldn't be dropped off at the front of the property and have to navigate that.
Absolutely. So I will look at the full site design on this. As I noted, I didn't come tonight to present solutions, just to where I was in progress to get your feedback so I can keep going and keep working towards a solution. So,
Lance, I had a question about, I know this is crazy, but if we have this opportunity to build a new school with expanded space, are we taking into consideration COVID at all in terms of making sure there's plenty of room for social distancing? I mean, I'm hoping this is all going to be resolved, but there's sort of a new normal, and I just wondered if that was taken into consideration at all.
I have not applied all of those lessons learned, but I absolutely can when we start refining the design. It is a work in progress, as I'm sure everybody else knows, about what COVID will have for a long-term effect on school design. I think from my standpoint, what I'm hearing the most is on the mechanical systems and making sure we're almost treating them like we do hospitals, where rooms don't share mechanical ductwork delivery. That you're just setting up duct lines a little differently. So,
right.
Absolutely, we can definitely look at it through that lens, particularly if your group comes up with their solution, and making sure whatever design we have would be easy to implement that solution.
And I would say something to not cut would be restrooms and hand washing facilities.
Anna had an idea for a student decontamination car wash.
Oh, there you go.
That was not appropriate, but she doesn't listen.
I'm sure the high schools normally would love that if they could decontaminate a few kids.
Yeah.
Hey, Lance, it's Roger. I agree with everyone. I feel that we have to keep all of our options open here. And my thought that just comes to mind with renovating the existing building and then building a facility behind it, just thinking of phasing for the timeline of those projects and what we actually do with the students during that timeline. I know that's more down the road and into the weeds, but it's just something that we should consider.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I think if Clark stays online, and ultimately we're only going to have 2 grades here, then if we take the other building, we make sure that we can actually shoehorn in both other grades into, or one other grade into that building, then that would give us the ability to renovate this building in likely 2 phases, trying to do double summer slams and then get 2 semester years in to do section by section and keep 1 grade in this building for just for 1 year.
Lance, okay to just give, just weigh in? I mean, obviously it would be great to have 1 building with all the grades, but I do understand the cost effectiveness, the potential of this building, but would in any way to keep them close, easily, as Ellen said, walkable, so we could share staff. Those are some of the issues that we come into contact, especially with special ed, from Clark to Wilkins, parents, like just not easily being able to flex those positions and needs. But if it were easily not a huge loss of time or travel, you know, then that makes it obviously much more doable.
Okay. All right. I will share these diagrams out and we'll continue to refine them. And we'll continue to finish off this concept. And then we'll also, at the next meeting, I'll be able to show you a concept of if this school, you know, if you had a whole brand new school, and we'll be able to do the cost comparison on that. I'm going to start with order of magnitude costs, and then we do have a construction estimator. Once we say this is the project we think is the best, they will put detailed cost to that at that time. All right. I'd love, if it's okay with the committee, to switch over to the middle school, or to go over to, sorry, the feedback, and then we can go back to the middle school. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of white screen, so I'll.
That's okay. If it's easier, so let's, you want to switch gears to the survey now?
Yeah. Do you want to share your screen for that?
If it's easier, I can just share my screen.
Okay,
Adam,
great.
if you allow me to do so.
Request is being considered and now approved.
Okay, that was fast. All right. Here we go. Everybody should be able to see the top. Is that true?
Yep.
Okay, great. So the PR committee does a lot of great work. They work very hard. It's a big job. And so we've begun the task of reaching out to the community. And we started with this survey. And we spent a long time looking over the questions and understanding what, not just how to word them, but why we're asking these questions. And basically, we wanted to gather an understanding of how your community feels about this process, the master plan, and the potential of a project. So starting with who, our first question is asking, okay, so you're taking this survey, and I just want to reiterate what Shannon mentioned earlier, which is that there were a number of avenues that were explored to pushing out the information to take the survey. It was not just one email blast, it was several, and it was posted on all kinds of public notification boards. So we had about just over 1,057 respondents. I think for our first survey, I think that's pretty good. In the climate that we're in now with COVID-19, SurveyMonkey is just a really great tool, but it's important to note that even if we weren't dealing with the conditions that arise from social distancing and COVID-19, we would still be using the SurveyMonkey, because it really is a benefit for this project. So just beginning with the simple question of where do you reside? Because we know that our schools feed not only from Amherst, but also from Mount Vernon. Not surprisingly, 86% came from Amherst and just 14 from Mount Vernon, which is a much smaller community. So that makes sense, but it's important that they were represented. And then now we get into a little bit more of the statistics here, which is like how long have you lived in the community? And you can see that a lot of the respondents have been longtime residents of the area, which is kind of nice to see. 49%, 11 plus years, with 5 to 10 falling behind that at 26%. The next one was all about priorities. So I'm just going to skip down and read these to you. So I am a community member that will have a student in the system. I am a community member that currently has a student. I'm a community member that no longer has a student. So this is about getting at, okay, we're speaking to one another through this survey. You're answering our questions. Are you someone who's an existing parent? Are you someone who has a student who graduated, or maybe you will have a student, and so on. And so the results were that of the people who took this survey, look at this, 76, just over 76% are parents who have a student in the system. And what that tells me is that we're doing a pretty great job of reaching out to existing parents. But probably we're going to want to look at the demographics of your town and find ways to do some more outreach to folks that don't have a child in the system. Oh, and this is fun. 17 were actually existing students. Love that. That's great. Okay, so now to the folks that answered that do have a child in the system, which schools do your children currently attend? And the results there, this is nice. It was pretty evenly distributed, actually. You're looking at about 40% go to the high school, a little bit more, 40%-ish go to the middle school, and 40% of the respondents go to the elementary school. So that's kind of nice to get a good spread. So that's parents probably with one children in different levels of education in the system. And from here, we want to learn, okay, we're done with figuring out who you are. Let's talk about what your priorities are. So this is the what portion of, what are we really trying to do here? And what do you really know about it? So here's a question. A quality public education system is important to me and impacts my community. So do you strongly agree, or somewhat agree, or disagree? I love this response. This is crystal clear. So of the people that took this survey, they agree that a strong community, a strong public education system is important to this community. So that is exactly the response that we want to get. I'm sure Shannon and Vicki would agree. So moving on to priorities. So I believe the district's most pressing facilities needs for Clark Wilkins and Amherst Middle School are, and then we ask that they rank, 1 being the most important, 6 being the least. So I'm going to scroll down to the summary only because the word cuts off in how this information was output. But if we look down here in the summary, the most important priority for the facilities is really tied, is really the most important one has to do with class size. And that's what Lance was kind of getting at, how the schools, the classrooms are kind of small for what today's standards are. And in fact, as the community grows, the classroom, the student enrollment is getting higher for one teacher, a little bit higher than what I think that your community would be comfortable with. So increasing enrollment, resulting in larger class sizes and greater student-teacher ratio was far and away the most important priority. Below that, these two came in roughly the same, which is not surprisingly the need to improve the HVAC. Older buildings always have these kinds of mechanical issues. That's nothing new. And also to look at safety and security, something on the minds of every citizen. Our next question talked about priorities as they relate to education. So less about facilities and more about education. And again, it's asking everyone to sort of rank and prioritize. And because these words got cut off, I'm just going to scroll down to the summary. Eventually we'll get there. Okay. So looking at energy efficiency and updated mechanical systems was very critical for some of the population, certainly critical, you can see on the minds of many, and would be nice to have. I would say the most important thing, look at this, 56% of respondents thought that building safety and security was the most critical element, followed by spaces that allow for lower student-teacher ratios. That sounds familiar. We just talked about in the previous question about the facilities, and the most important thing that came back from the community was keeping the classroom sizes down. Beyond that, coming in at about 38%, was updated technology and science labs. At school, the way that we teach and the way that we interact with one another has changed so much over time, and the the decades since these buildings were built, that technology is something that is expected to be integrated into classrooms today. And that's, of course, on the mind of people in Amherst and Mount Vernon. So from there, we really wanted to focus on the why. Why are Lance and I doing this? Why was LBA hired? Does the town know about the current conditions of the existing schools? And so looking at how familiar are you with the district's facility needs and the process being used to find solutions? This isn't so bad. Of the respondents, people were mostly familiar, which is good. So everyone who's out there talking about it, keep talking about it. That helps our grassroots effort. And then lastly, and probably incredibly important, how'd you hear about us? What's the best way to reach you? So please share with us which sources you use to become informed about school-related issues. And you can see that the most used one is the school emails. That's not a surprise because we saw from the very beginning of our survey that most of the respondents are parents with kids currently in the system. So the school emails is a natural, easy way to get in touch with them. So we have a little work to do, but I think this is a great way to start. The very last thing that we talked about was asking them to comment. And looks like most people skipped it. 860 people skipped it, but we got 200 comments. I thought it would be fun to read a few. Can you guys see my screen? I switched applications. So I just highlighted a few that I thought were kind of important. I won't read all of them because I want to be respectful of time, but it's a nice way to gauge the community and what's on their mind. It goes beyond the level of just the survey questions. And so here's one. My hope is that any work or improvements done will not be a Band-Aid type fix, but a truly thought out long-term solution. I love that comment because, and I think Lance would agree, this is why we're doing a master plan, because when a district is a network of buildings, each building affects the other building. And so it's not appropriate to look at them as an isolated school. We have to look at all the schools. So what we do will not be a Band-Aid. Moving down, spend as if it were your money, wisely and prudent. If we didn't do that, we wouldn't have a job. We absolutely will spend money, make design decisions that take into account being wise and being prudent of Amherst and Mount Vernon's dollar. I think that was something that we touched upon earlier in this meeting. So that's a good comment. But this one's funny, so that's why I highlighted it. Please just get on with making a choice. This is too many years talking. Love the enthusiasm there. I really appreciate the lack of hesitation, but the truth is it's wise to slow down a little bit, make sure that our choice, whatever we decide to do, is based on the strategies explored and reviewed in the master plan. So we're going to get there, just a little bit more patience. This person writes, I've coached AMS kids and was blown away at the condition of the AMS locker room. It would be nice if that was brought into a presentation, into a presentable condition. Absolutely. I think that there's all kinds of areas in the existing schools that will be under consideration, and that kind of upgrade is a part of this project. Our last child just finished at Wilkins. It's probably half the size it should be. Not surprised to hear this person say that, because in our survey, we found that classroom size was something on the minds of respondents. Our town and children deserve cleaner, more efficient buildings. Okay, sounds good. I served on the board of health in a major city in the past and know firsthand the solutions that arise if you don't address, the situations that arise if you don't address facilities timely and responsibly. Please make the building integrity and safety a top priority. Absolutely. And maybe we'll end on this one. Is there a possibility of having to build a new modern building to accommodate the growing population? I think that there's all kinds of possibilities. We certainly talked about two or three of them tonight thus far. And the point here is that through this master plan, we're going to explore responsibly and reasonably those possibilities, and always report back to the community to get their input. So those were the results of the survey. I thank Shannon and Victoria, others on the community. If there's anything you'd like to add, please do so. And I'll stop sharing.
Great, thank you, Anne. I think I'm really excited to see those presented, and I'm happy that we've had, in the midst of everything that's going on right now, I think community members are being asked a lot of questions about a myriad of things related to our schools. So for any community member who's watching, who took time to, answer the survey and put some comments in there for us, thank you so much. It really is, it's helpful, and certainly all of our decisions need to be guided with the full support of the community, and it really is a decision for the entire town. I think Jeanne has said it before, and others have said it before. What we do in investing in our public space infrastructures, it doesn't happen every day. So we want to get it right, not just for the students who are there today, but the students who will be there tomorrow, the folks who have lived in Amherst for a long time, who are looking at their property values and, what kind of community we have and who we want to be. So this was just the first kind of opening up a dialogue with folks, but certainly not the last. And I appreciate everyone on the PR committee side trying to get that pushed out. And again, just thanks to the community, and please stay tuned as we get a website up and running. We do have a Facebook page that doesn't have a lot of information on it yet, but we really are interested in kind of hearing from everyone to make this, this work that was supported by residents during last March during the vote. We want you to get everything out of it that you're expecting. Thank you.
Great.
Great. So does the group have energy to keep going? I could show you, I have some concepts for the middle school that are early, and I would love to get some honest critiques on them. If you want to do that another time, I understand. But I'm happy to share them now with a few different solutions that are not the final solution by any means. They're not vetted. They're just, here's some directions we could go. What do you guys think?
I'm up for staying, but I vote we send Anna home.
I agree.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Good job, Anna.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I'm going
Adam, you have to stay.
No problem.
Now, I do want to impress, as I noted, these are by no means final solutions. These are ideas that are in progress, just ways to look at how we could solve some of the issues at the middle school based on the feedback we've gotten to date. They need a lot of refinement still, and so I don't want anyone sitting at home saying they've already figured this out and they haven't taken input. We still need to take input on these from this group. Input, I think we'll have opportunities for community input, and we still need to assign dollars to everything so that everybody can say that's a good solution. So I've got a few different solutions. They're strikingly similar because the shape of your middle school is extremely ornate, which only lends additions in specific ways. So it's a little bit more difficult thing to work with. It was clearly designed as a middle school. It's designed in clusters, which is great because it fits your educational value. It fits that diagram we started with. Now, I'll remind everybody, right now, this existing middle school is divided, and all these rooms are actually pie-shaped. They're the number one complaint from educators. It was number one complaint from everybody we talked to that said, please get rid of these pie-shaped classrooms. They're not functional, triangle-shaped classrooms. What we've been doing is saying, let's reuse as much of this building as possible. There are some great areas of the building that are in good shape, and let's try and fix those big issues. So in this first scenario, and I've got 3 options I'm going to show you, and then we're going to discuss them and say what, think about these other ideas. Basically, I'm asking you to beat me up a little bit, give me a critique. So on this scenario, as a reminder as well, you come in the building now, and there's actually a grade change from this side to this side, and those 2 existing stairs are there. That creates an opportunity, though, for us in that if we wanted to do that center learning commons that we had discussed, that we could actually terrace the center there into a presentation area that could be a community use space for presentations. It could be a student gathering area, a lecture hall, right in the center of the building, and it can also be kind of a learning commons. It works really well in the center of that building. It's an efficient use of space, and it creates that large gathering area that a lot of the faculty and administrators saying that they would ideally have at this school, besides just the gym. Now, we've reused the gym and the cafeteria without huge renovations there. We can definitely make upgrades throughout, things like person's comment that the locker rooms are not in great shape. That's not documented on this just yet. This is just big brush strokes that we're showing so far. So mechanical systems, lighting systems, energy efficiency upgrades, finishes, those are givens. Acoustic upgrades, fire safety, and sanitation upgrades, those are givens. This is just big picture ideas. On this scenario, we said, let's move the music room. The music rooms need to be significantly bigger than they are now. They are currently in these small boxes right over here. We said, let's move the music rooms, given the size of the space they want, to the wing that has the large space. We could put art over there and do an art and music wing. Each of these, instead of having several pie-shaped, we reduce the amount of classrooms out here so that we get adequately sized classrooms. Square-shaped, I know I kept a single angle on each side. That's an existing bearing wall, and I would love to keep it cost-effective. We were able to create this home that has the breakout space, the special education, testing, meeting space, case manager space, and a common area. The center of the building was able to accommodate meeting space and professional development space. Now remember that professional development space also is meeting space for students, it's special education, it's multi-use. As I say, every space in this building, our goal was that it's used by a myriad of things so that we're getting efficient use. Over here, one of the comments that several people had is that you have an innovation and a maker lab that the community uses, and it should actually be a highlight of your program. You should actually build upon that to really accentuate and celebrate STEAM in your building. So we relocated it to here in existing space so that when you came up through this learning commons, it would be right there on display. The addition is outlined in red. Essentially, it's a two-story addition that matches these other wings, stays amazingly consistent, kept it a very simple shape. And it did have the extra computer lab and language rooms that are needed for that grade, for that cohort. You can see a lot of existing gray walls over here. Those were reusing those spaces, putting in life skills, special education, guidance, tech support. We did redo the main entrance. Similar to our proposal for the high school, we want to move the main entrance and the offices as much as possible over so that we can create a secure entranceway. We relocated our nurse to that area as well. Stepping back, I'm sorry, I forgot to show you the site plan. So you can see the addition that happens here. The principal actually had an idea that eventually they'd love to have the playground on this side of the building so that the parent drop as it comes around isn't coming right up next to that playground. That gives us the ability to have a bus drop here, and we've pushed that pedestrian edge all the way around so that whether students coming from the playground to the bus or the gym to the bus or the main entrance over to the parent drop, that we're kind of keeping them separate from traffic. With the playground not being here, it also expands that the parking you lost a little bit here can be picked up over here. And it gives us the ability to kind of rearrange that parking lot and get a new scenario, get some new striping.
Lance, on the makerspace, I just wonder, I don't know where it is right now. I just know a lot of people utilize it. Had you considered putting it on sort of the outside so that like the whole building doesn't have to be opened up if members of the community want to use it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. I can definitely incorporate that. It is right now an outside wall over here so the community members can use it. Originally, we had thought, could they come in this door here and go right to the makerspace? But I would definitely, that's a good point that we would want to kind of secure that off so that if somebody was using the makerspace, we set up a vestibule here so that they would have direct access to it or relocate.
Yeah, Lance, when that was first built, there was a lot of time and attention put into ensuring that there was an outside access point for community members, just because there are students who are in the building at various times of day. And so that was definitely something that was paid attention to. So,
Okay.
And also we got to consider the machinery that's back in the makerspace. There's a lot of, I think, air filtering machines that are required. So I don't know if that's built in.
Okay, those are excellent points. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. I will get that. I think the third concept I show you is going to put it on an outside wall for you.
the moving the play area is really a great thing. I mean, that has haunted. I don't have any students there now, but just a horrible feeling driving through there, knowing that there are children running around. So,
great.
I would want that in any scenario.
Awesome. Okay.
Seconds that, Amy.
Vance, can you just go back to the overhead projecting when you had the bus route? So you should know that our middle school and high school share buses. And right now they come up the driveway between Sauhegan, and the children walk this path.
Yeah, so they're walking here.
Yeah, so I'm not sure the bus route is going to be important, but what is important is vitally important is moving that playground.
Yeah.
Because there are more parents that drive their kids to school, I think, anyways.
Yeah.
But also considering that you know, that gives parents a lot of space to park and pick their kids up, you know, if they're doing after school sports or whatever.
Okay.
So
so the bus route may not be required then. Okay, so what I would definitely do then, I'll connect this over to this area here, so that those connect over and you continue to use that bus loop over here.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, upper floor is more of the same here. Essentially reworking these pods. I was able to get a pod here, and a pod here. So we've got all of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade accommodated, all in their own team rooms, all with all the resources that the administrators were telling us they need. We did look to make it very efficient, as in the upper floor and the lower floor exactly the same footprint, so the structure is simple and we can be cost effective with that. Okay, so on this concept, strikingly similar. It's going to have the same flaw that you guys just pointed out with the innovation and making it in the same spot. The difference was here that we were trying to work harder to create kind of a STEAM area. I'm showing you this concept just to show you that we've investigated it. I don't think it's as strong as the next concept I'm about to show you. If we were doing a single L shaped and it was creating a pretty nice courtyard there, but I think the next concept is a little bit stronger. So I'm going to move past this one pretty quick. Okay. So, went past the first floor. So in this concept, I really liked the idea of, I think we're working these pods very well. This does two different things that are two different things you have to weigh in on. One was, you could do small additions at each one if we decide that language really should be part of the team. You know, and I know we talked back and forth about that let's investigate it with design. Should language be part of every pod? If you decide you want to do that, there is a way to do that and do these small additions. The downside to those small additions is they tend to be fairly costly because you've got a small, 3 exterior walls for one room. It works well, though, if that's the route we took. So that's one idea that I'm kind of looking for some feedback on. But I think some of these other concepts are working really well in that we'd created an open courtyard on the side and said, you know what, we could create an innovation courtyard, and whether the innovation lab goes here or here, we could work through this to say this could be that community access side where the innovation lab is there. Potentially a media center has some community access, and kind of create this courtyard, this whole entrance sequence. That's the after hours middle school side. We thought that worked pretty well in that you could do that during the day, and we could secure it off during the day for students to also have this kind of, what we're thinking is that as if you're going to build upon STEAM and you've got your innovation lab, is that you might want an outdoor student area and an outdoor build area. I know you have outdoor classrooms on site. This would be one that's right kind of in that own courtyard. With this scenario, on the upper floor, that gives us opening there. You can see the building layout, very simple. You've got 3 or 4 pods per level. It works very well. We're reusing these existing wings. This language classroom, if the group doesn't like it, can be added on to the addition here. And I think overall, when we looked at the total, sorry, that's the existing, total square footage, that was option C. They're all comparable. They're essentially between 20 and 25,000 square feet. I would say that that 10% swing that we're talking about there, or 20,000 square feet of addition, that 10% swing that we're talking about there can be made up in when we've refined the design. So those are the options, and I kind of want to open that third concept up to critiques and ideas that people see as we consider that as an option.
Lance, that addition on the front, how far is that coming out on the front of our existing building? Is that about a 30 feet out for the proposed addition right there? Exactly.
Yeah, it's about 25 feet.
Okay. And in these designs, is the elevator moving or is the elevator staying?
I would want to keep the elevator you have, but I definitely, it's not shown yet. I haven't refined it that far, but I definitely want an elevator next to that learning commons, because that's your transition up. That's right where I'm gonna want an elevator there. So if you're using that as a learning commons, that students aren't having to go elsewhere to the elevator.
Okay.
I like the innovation courtyard.
Me too. Is it outside?
Yeah, so that is outside, and what we're proposing is that we could put a canopy here and a gateway so that we could create more of a secure area. It would need you'd need fire egress out here, so the gate would obviously have a fire egress, so it wouldn't be trapped there. But
I think given the current environment, creating some outdoor space is really smart.
I think it's a nice feature for the community as well. I mean, the makerspace is as much a community space as it is, you know, part of the curriculum for our students. So I think anything you can do to sort of enhance that is definitely a benefit for everybody. So yeah, I agree. I like the courtyard idea.
So what are the benefits? Can everybody chime in about the benefits? I mean, obvious benefit of having the language arts connected right onto the classroom is so that the kids don't have to walk far. That they're not separated, I guess, from their little learning pod. But when they transition over to the high school, they'll be walking all over the place, even into another building. So Lance, what the other option is to put those bump outs?
So right now I'm showing these 2 small additions, right?
Yeah.
Here. The other option is cost effectively, if we can put all the additions in one location, that makes our construction cheaper, because right now, if you look at exterior walls being more expensive than interior walls, I've got 3 exterior walls for 1 room. So there's a little bit more expensive addition to do. If we don't do them here, essentially I will redesign this area, grow it enough so that we would do it as part of this addition.
So that would be my vote. And I think sort of professional development wise, camaraderie wise, the language arts teachers would then all be together instead of, very separate, so that, they can kind of work as a team. And I think it's healthy for the kids to kind of move off their wing for a subject. And it's hard for me to conceptualize a bump out on the front of that building.
I think also if we have an opportunity for some cost savings, then that would be one that I would be in favor of.
So I would vote for moving those 2 bump outs to where the addition is going to be, the big addition over here.
Okay, we can do that.
Well, everybody else should chime in.
Yeah.
No, and for me, Ellen, that's why I asked the question. I have a hard time with the bump out in the front of the building like that. I agree with that. And Lance, just another option. Are you able to put the front bump out in the back with the back, so that in the front we have the floor classrooms and then you have 6? I don't know how that works as far as just curriculum wise, but I'm trying to get that bump out of the front.
Yeah, I think if we decide that language arts doesn't need to be attached to this pod, then it doesn't need to be attached to any pod, because you take that philosophy, as Ellen had pointed out, and say, you know what, let's look at it as a cluster of its own versus integrated into the teams.
So we're talking languages, right? Not ELA.
Sorry, languages, not language arts, language.
Okay, all right.
Lisa Eastlin, I see your hand, so I just want
Thanks.
to feel free
Yeah,
to jump in.
Thanks. I have quite a bit actually. So Amy, you cleared that one up, the world languages. One of the issues that I'm seeing is many of the specials teachers do more than one thing. So the art teacher and currently the art teacher and one of the computer teachers does engineering, and they move back and forth between those classrooms. And if you have computer all the way at one end of the building and art at the other, that's going to change the dynamic of the engineering class. And also in terms of, a lot of times you're like finishing up, cleaning up art, and your kids for engineering are waiting in the hall for you to transition classes. So the overlap of schedules would be big. You might need to hire more people because of the overlap. And oftentimes, if you can't get a sub, you're combining classes or kind of just standing in the pod or until somebody else can get there while you're watching, say, innovation while doing art. So there's issues, personnel issues. That's one of the things. And I haven't seen in any of these specifically a family and consumer science class, which is definitely part of the curriculum for cooking and doing all of that kind of stuff. And then the last question I have, oh, there it is, thank you. Then is the Learning Commons enclosed, or is that a big open space? Is that using the old enclosed library?
That is actually a big open space.
Okay.
What we kind of discussed, I mean, we could do either. You have the square footage to do either. But what we had discussed with the faculty is having this kind of heart of the building that's more of an open area with some small enclosed breakout spaces off it for professional development and potentially some small group classrooms that
Yeah, so I would definitely encourage enclosure, simply because if you've got kids from a different grade walking down to art, guess what those kids are going to be doing that are in the middle of a class while the teacher's trying to talk? They're not listening to the teacher anymore. They're now looking at their friends and doing all that kind of stuff, or somebody's coming into the lobby. You know, that 6th, 7th, 8th graders attention spans really, you know, kind of not known for that. So I think having an enclosed space, or even just if it's a barrier, some kind of visual barrier, it doesn't have to be maybe enclosed all the way, but just keeping the distraction level down would be great, because you're going to have people going to lunch while classes are going on. And so then you have a noise problem, you have traffic problem. So it's something definitely to consider in closing that off. That's all I have.
What was the vision for that space in there? Was it for classrooms, or was it more?
No, the
uses, teacher space, or?
There were several uses outlined. They currently don't have the space, so I want to be clear about that. So when we talked about what they would love to have is, it's not for general classroom. If you decided you wanted to take an entire grade level out and do an activity, do a lecture, anything like that, then you would do it there. If you wanted to do a school presentation, you'd be able to do it there. If you wanted to do it, I mean, short of if you need the whole school, then you're going to use the gym. But if you're going to take an entire grade level or 2 grade levels, they wanted a space in the center of the building that was open. And if they go to a smart lunch, in which they had talked about doing, that means they also are having kids eat out and about in some areas of the building. It was really a multi-use space. In the evening, it's presentation. Let's set it up, wire it for lights and mics and be able to do speeches, have guest visitors. But it's a lot of different things. The teachers did note we could do it as professional development. We could have the district here, or we could have all of our teachers together and do seminars on professional development. But that's not the only use. It's everything. Anytime you want to, what we're setting up here is anytime you want a group of about 150 people, this is where you go.
It's a great idea for our community to have another space like that in the community. So I think it's valuable, and Lisa is a professional substitute at the Amherst Middle School, and she knows that place really well. So certainly some boundaries will have to be created around scheduling, and I'm sure they'll learn that quickly. But I think I love the flexibleness of it. And Sauhegan has a lot of little places for this, for kids to kind of sit and hang out and chat, and the Amherst Middle School really doesn't. So that's also a great advisory spot. I love it.
Yeah, I would agree in terms of if moving towards that anchoring adult, kind of the advisory model at the middle school would be good. Ultimately, right now, currently, there's good. The kids don't have a lot of just hangout time. They do work in groups out in the hallway. So if you had that kind of space with a monitor or easy access from the other teachers to go check on their kids that are out there, that would be really good. I do like having the little learning commons within each pod. That's very helpful for kids going out to work in the hallway. And Ellen, I think it was whoever Roger's idea, putting all the world languages together is good because of the constant over 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, the constant changing of the schedule, so that those teachers aren't having to run from place to place within the building. They have a home that they can have all those manipulables and the signs and all those things that go along with world language exactly where they need it.
Has Bethany had a chance to look at these different scenarios?
No, that is my next step is get some feedback from you guys, and I'm going to go back to her and start this loop again and continue to refine it.
I didn't see a health room for health class. Where would that be?
Health class. I do not know offhand.
Okay.
I will have to find it. If it's in the program, it's in the plan. I just do not know offhand where I located the health class.
Yeah, it's hard to see the little writing. I'm a little older than you, Lance. I have a hard time.
So Lance, when I kind of try to visualize this in my mind, that main learning commons area that we were just discussing, I'm sort of envisioning when you go to like a large museum and they have, like a sunken sort of floor space, and they'll do like pop-up demonstrations there, and there's kind of like some round seating, like a little amphitheater kind of thing. Is that sort of what it would feel like?
Yeah, if you type in Agora or Learning Commons into Google, you'll see a lot of different schools are incorporating these really across the country as these large kind of presentation collaborative areas. It will, if we do it right, it's also a transition to get you from upper floor and lower floor in kind of an open area. And it can be used for a lot of different things.
So I like it because I think it's the kind of flexible space that we talked about, being important at the last meeting. I like to piggyback on what Ellen said about an alternate space for community use, which I think that there's a lot of functionality there for that. And so I don't know, if there's a way to nicely do it with, a few like kind of half walls, or, you guys are the experts to provide a little bit of privacy, but I like the notion of it as described right now.
I think based on what Lisa was describing is that it's trying to get the kids that are going from one part of the building to another part of the building, not to disrupt what's going on in the heart of the building. So it may be simply putting a few walls just on the outskirts and kind of leaving one end open. And then you still have that open feel, but at least you're not seeing the kids' entire journey around the space. So
I think that's a good solution.
Yeah.
Lance, can you just tell us where the SRO's office is? Is it close to that open space?
Honestly, I don't. Where did I put the SRO? I think the SRO is so small that on these broad brush strokes, I didn't locate them yet.
Okay, because my concern is always, security, and open spaces tend to be, a little frightening to me. I love the idea, but it just, means a lot of kids in one space that could be subject to violence. That's all I am concerned about. So I just was hoping that the SRO at least could be close by.
I think, so towards that end, that's an excellent point. I think as we develop the design, we're going to rework administration on both sides here. it may be that we try and get really great sight lines here.
Yep.
And here, sorry, so that the administration
Somebody's.
glassed in and they're looking right at it. So as we talk about trying to put some walls up, we put those walls up kind of around this side. So administration has always got a great view into that area.
Great,
So
thank you.
on that, on getting those sight lines worked out.
So Lance, let me ask a question, because this is something that came up that when we talk with you about Sohegan 2.0 next week, and it could be something that the middle school might want to consider. I don't know if that learning common area could be used or not, but when we talk about individualized learning plans for kids, there might be a time that a kid needs a little cubby to go do a VLAX class or go do some sort of class. Is there space or some sort of design that allows them to go somewhere and do that?
Yes, several. Much of what we're trying to accomplish in the pods include that. Some of these, this is labeled BO, that's a breakout space. So those are areas that these classrooms could send kids. They're areas that case managers could meet with kids. There also can be individualized work zones. The idea behind these professional development areas is just that we would subdivide these, glass them in so that we can see if somebody's in there, so they have acoustic separation, but we still have a visual connection to them.
Yeah.
And I still do.
So those could be used by the students for something like that too.
Like
okay.
This area, as we talked about, we're going to need visual sight lines to those, and we can create those. We've done this very successfully inside libraries where you have, like, you know, kind of these small rooms, like an 8x8 room with a glass wall on one side, and somebody can go in there. And if the door is shut, essentially the room is occupied, that student's working independently. But at least we have a good visual sight line because, there are some kids.
Yeah. Perfect.
We can work that out. It is throughout this plan and is throughout the program. As we develop these areas, that's exactly what some of those breakout spaces are going to be. And that's exactly what these professional development areas are going to be.
Great.
So in those breakout rooms, Lance, like the 300 square foot, would that be a glass type wall situation as well? So it feels kind of less, like, I like that idea. It's less, claustrophobic and kind of closet-like.
Well,
Yep. Our goals that we went over last time and kind of had the diagram was that we would have like some glass here and here, here, and here. So if this teacher said, I would like this group of kids to go out and work in that area and come back, they have a good sight line to that. That we would also have some glass into here. We don't want to make it a full fishbowl because that's not conducive to being comfortable. But we do want to have good sight lines throughout. So I think if we did partial glass here and did that, we can also have blinds, so that's adjustable. I know that sometimes there may be times when you want to do a one-on-one meeting and you don't want to be on display. So we can do a blind that covers that and it says, okay, that room is being adjusted right now. But yeah, our goal is to have these kind of very visible and flexible spaces.
Great.
I have two more questions. One of the things that is always an issue there is storage space, storage for furniture that's not being used, materials that are not being used at the time. And it's hard for me to see, like, I see some storage like over by art, but like that kind of storage is always an issue. And then are there going to be is there any like fluff spaces, any extra that's being added in? Because I'm thinking of like the math support room. Then there's the one teacher who does all levels of extra math support. She has her own classes. Like, where would that go? So is there room to grow or to adjust the use of spaces?
We're trying to design everything very flexibly, as in, if, as many rooms as possible work for as many functions as possible. Because we know your curriculum is going to change before this building does. So that is trying to be incorporated. We do not have truly flex rooms that are not in the program at all. If you do look at our program, though, that we went over at our last meeting, you'll see growth pretty much across the board. And it's not as in like we needed 6 rooms and we're going to create 7. It's that we currently have 5, we should have 6. And there you're going to see some growth there. As far as storage goes, I have not incorporated storage out. As you may note, there's no doors in this plan yet. These are just blocking spaces out. and I will have the opportunity to create storage. It was one of the things that every pod said, things that aren't shown here is a second breakout room and storage in a workroom. And we just haven't got to that detail yet because those are a little bit smaller rooms, and I just started with the big brush strokes.
Okay, thanks.
So thank you, Lance. This was really helpful. And were you done? I didn't want to cut you off, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and it's been a long night for,
I got exactly
for many of us.
I was really hoping you guys would give me some feedback, some critiques, and so I
Okay.
can continue to refine this plan. I will look to work with the principals on each of these schools and come to the next meeting having some input from them on each of these plans, as well as taking into account the input that you've given me so far.
Okay. So yeah, thank you. So Shannon, I was just gonna go over our next steps. That's okay? Okay, so yeah, so it sounds like Lance, you'll be center stage for us at our next meeting with all of your work on the various buildings. So I think that will probably take up most of our evening. We'll certainly have our report outs from public relations and Sohegan 2.0. Is there anything that I'm missing, anyone, Shannon or anyone else, that we want to make sure we have on the agenda for next time?
Not that I can think of, but I would be lying if I said my brain didn't feel a little on overload right now.
Yeah,
So
I
please,
know.
anyone who may know of something that I'm not thinking of or that Amy's not thinking of, jump right in there.
Yeah, and we'll have Slack, obviously, so if anyone thinks of other items that we want to cover, but I think most of our time will be dedicated to the work that Lance will be finishing up over the next couple of weeks. And our next meeting is August 20th. So hopefully everyone has that on their calendar. And I think if that's okay, I'm going to wrap us up.
Thank you,
Sound
Lance.
good?
Thank you, Anne.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Guys. Lance, we'll talk to you Monday.